Alright, I'll just dive right into this because honestly, I've been holding it in for too long. My name's Jake, and what I'm about to tell you is the raw, unfiltered truth about how I found out my wife, Emily, was cheating on me during the week we were supposed to be getting married. Yep, right in the middle of what should have been the happiest time of my life. I thought I knew her, thought we were solid, but it turns out she had other plans, and I was just too blind to see it coming. We met about 5 years ago. I was working a decent job, she was in her late 20s, sharp as hell, and we clicked pretty quick. She was charming, confident, and honestly, I thought she was the one. We moved in together after about a year, everything was smooth until about 6 months ago. That's when I started noticing small things. She'd come home later than usual, excuse herself from conversations, act kinda cold sometimes. I'd ask and she'd brush it off, call me paranoid. Things weren't perfect, but I was willing to overlook them because I loved her. Then, just a couple of weeks before the wedding, I started catching strange messages on her phone, little things that didn't add up. She'd get texts at odd hours, quickly hide her phone when I entered the room, or delete stuff right in front of me. I brushed it off, told myself I was overthinking. But that week, everything changed. We were at a fancy hotel for the wedding weekend, and everything was supposed to be perfect. We planned this for months, and I'd been excited. I even arranged a little surprise for her at the hotel, something I thought she'd love. But on the night before the big day, I decided to check her phone again. Just a quick peek because I was feeling suspicious and I wanted to see if she was hiding anything. I knew I shouldn't have, but I couldn't stop myself. And that's when I saw it. The messages. Not just innocent see you soon stuff, but explicit conversations talking about sex, planning secret meetups, calling her boss hot, saying she could leave me after they got their thing going. My stomach dropped. It was all there, right in front of me. She was planning to leave me for her boss, Mark. During our wedding week, the worst part. I was standing right outside her bathroom door and she was in there, probably texting him or whoever else she was screwing around with. I could hear her voice through the door, arguing with someone about how she done with the poor guy, how she's finally free and that she's going to start a new life. She was lying through her teeth, telling me she never cheated, that she's not like that, and that I'm just paranoid. Yeah, right. I felt so numb I didn't even know what to do. I was supposed to be marrying this woman in less than 24 hours, and here she was, planning her escape with her boss. I stayed silent, a mix of shock, anger, and heartbreak swirling inside me. I couldn't believe I'd been so blind. All the signs, the late nights, the mood swings, they all made sense now. That's when the realization hit. I was being played. She wasn't the woman I thought I knew. She was using me as a backup plan, and her real plans involved that asshole Mark. I wanted to scream, to break something, but I just clenched my fists and waited for her to come out so I could confront her. I knew I had to do something, but I also knew I couldn't just let it slide. The betrayal cut deep, and the worst part was knowing our wedding, which I had been dreaming about for years, was just a cover for her to get what she wanted, someone better, someone who could give her what I apparently couldn't. That moment, standing there in the shadows, I realized everything had changed. My life was about to take a completely different turn. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I stayed up packing, trying to figure out what to do next. Should I confront her right then and there? Should I call her out in the morning? Or just walk away and pretend I never saw anything? But deep down, I knew there was no way I could pretend. No way I could look at her the same way again. This betrayal was on a level I couldn't even process fully yet. All I knew was I wasn't going to let her get away with it. Not without a fight. The next morning was a blur. I woke up feeling like I'd been hit by a truck. My stomach was churning, my head was pounding, and I just kept replaying that moment in the bathroom over and over. I didn't sleep, and I didn't want to. My mind was racing with questions. How long had she been planning this? How many times had she done this before? Was I stupid for not seeing it, for ignoring the signs? When Emily finally came out of the bathroom, she looked fresh, as if she'd just had a good night's sleep. She was already trying to act normal, brushing her hair, putting on makeup, and flashing that fake smile of hers. That smirk made my blood boil. I just stared at her, trying to keep calm while my mind was screaming for answers. She finally looked at me and said, "Good morning, babe. Sleep well." Her voice was sugary sweet, too sweet. I could see the slight flicker of nervousness in her eyes, but she quickly masked it with her usual bitchy attitude. I knew she was trying to pretend everything was normal, but I also knew what I'd found. I wasn't about to let her play me for a fool anymore. I took a deep breath and looked her straight in the eyes. "We need to talk," I said, voice steady but cold. She blinked, the facade cracking just a little. "About what?" she asked, innocent, as if she had no idea what I was talking about. "Yeah, right." I pulled out my phone and showed her the messages. Her face instantly paled. She tried to brush it off, claiming I was reading too much into it, that it was just fun, that it meant nothing. But the truth was right there, staring us in the face. She started lying as usual, denying everything, saying that I was crazy, that I was jealous, that she loved me and would never cheat. I could see the panic in her eyes, the desperation to cover her ass. But I was done listening to her bullshit. I told her I knew she'd been planning this for weeks, that I'd uncovered her little scheme, and that I wasn't going to be a part of her game anymore. That's when she snapped. She called me paranoid, said I was overreacting, accused me of spying and invading her privacy. That was the moment I realized how much of a bitch she'd become. She was so caught up in her lies, she didn't even care how obvious she was. I was furious, heartbroken, and completely betrayed. I felt like I had been punched in the gut over and over again. I wanted to scream at her, to shake her, and make her admit everything, but I also knew I had to keep my cool. I told her I was leaving, that I didn't want to see her face again, that I was done. She kept crying, begging me to believe her, but I had already made up my mind. I packed my stuff and left the hotel that morning, walking out into the world with a heavy heart. I couldn't believe the woman I'd loved, the woman I'd planned my future with, had been lying to me from the start. All those promises, the laughs, the little moments we shared, they all felt so meaningless now. I kept thinking about how she had used me, played me for a fool, all while pretending to be the perfect wife. I felt sick, angry, and betrayed, but at the same time a small part of me knew I had to move on. I couldn't let her destroy me with her lies. That day I realized something else. I was stronger than I thought. I'd been blindsided, yes, but I wasn't going to let her get away with it. I wasn't going to let her ruin everything we had. I knew I needed time to process, to heal, but I also knew I wouldn't let her win by walking all over me. The betrayal had cut deep, but it also lit a fire in me. I was going to rebuild, even if it was just to prove to her and myself that I deserved better than a bitch who cheats during our wedding week. After I left that hotel, I felt like I was drowning in a sea of shock and rage. The entire day was a blur of trying to keep it together, dealing with friends and family who kept asking questions about the wedding, about Emily, about everything. I couldn't find the words to explain what I was really feeling, how betrayed, humiliated, and furious I was. Every time I thought about her lying in that bathroom, texting her boss about leaving me, I felt my blood boil all over again. I knew I had to do something. I couldn't just walk away quietly, not after what I'd uncovered. So I started thinking about my next move, how to get revenge, how to make her regret everything she'd done. I wasn't about to let her walk all over me and then go on with her life like nothing happened. That night, I sat alone in my apartment, replaying everything in my head. I wasn't someone who usually sought revenge, but this was different. She had taken the best part of me, the trust I had in her, and shattered it. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut 100 times. The thought of her still lying to me, smiling in her stupid, bitchy face, made me sick. I needed a plan, something that would show her I wasn't the fool she thought I was. I started digging. I knew she'd be staying with her sister for a few days to cool off, she said. I also knew her phone was still a weak point. I got access to her social media accounts through some old passwords she'd used, and I started gathering everything I could find. I wanted her to see what I was capable of, to understand that I wasn't the type to get played and then forget about it. I wasn't a pushover. I was going to make her regret ever crossing me. Over the next few days, I set everything up. I created a fake email account, one that looked exactly like her boss Mark's email. I started sending him messages, pretending to be her. I sent him details about her plans to leave me, how she was eager to start her new life, how she was frustrated with me. I made sure to sound convincing, enough to make him believe the rumors she'd been spreading about being unhappy, wanting out, and that she was ready for a hot new start. I even threw in some explicit details about their secret meetings, just enough to stir the pot. Meanwhile, I kept quiet. I knew Emily would eventually check her email or social media, and when she did, I wanted her to see the evidence she'd left behind. I knew her ego. She'd think she was still in control, that she could manipulate everyone, including me. But I wanted her to realize she'd screwed with the wrong guy. I was no longer the naive fool she thought I was. A few days later, I saw her get anxious. She checked her phone obsessively, kept messaging Mark, and even started acting paranoid, asking her sister if anyone was watching her. That's when I decided it was time. I sent the fake email from her account to Mark, revealing everything I'd fabricated. I made sure he knew that Emily had been planning to leave me, that she'd been cheating on me during our wedding week, and that she was a snake. The fallout was fast. Mark responded almost immediately, furious, accusing her of lying and cheating. I kept the whole thing quiet, letting her get her own taste of the chaos she'd created. Watching her unravel, seeing her trying to lie her way out of it was almost satisfying. She called me, begging, crying, claiming she didn't know what was happening, that someone was framing her. But I wasn't falling for that anymore. I kept silent, watching her squirm. That moment, as she realized her own game was backfiring, was a turning point. I felt a strange mix of relief and anger. Revenge had taken its toll on her. She was losing control, and I was the one pulling the strings. I didn't need to ruin her completely, just enough to make her understand she couldn't lie her way out of what she'd done. I was done being the fool. From that moment on, I knew I would never trust her again, and I would never let her treat me like I was nothing. She had played her hand, and I was just starting to fight back. After setting everything in motion, I started noticing how her behavior changed completely. Emily was no longer the confident, bitchy woman I knew. She became frantic, constantly checking her phone, deleting messages, and snapping at anyone who tried to talk to her. She was obviously paranoid, realizing that I had some kind of leverage over her. I kept my distance, watching her fall apart little by little, knowing I had finally turned the tables. One night she came home late, obviously upset, eyes red and puffy from crying. I didn't say much at first. I just sat there and watched her fumble through her words, trying to come up with some excuse. She claimed she'd been at her sister's house, that she'd been crying because she was so stressed out, and that all this wedding stuff was just overwhelming. Yeah, bullshit. I knew the truth now, that she was terrified of what I'd done and what might come next. That was the moment I decided to confront her directly. I told her I knew everything, about her cheating, about her plans to leave me, about her lying to everyone. Her jaw dropped, and for a second she looked genuinely scared. Then she started with her usual bullshit, denying everything, calling me paranoid, saying I was crazy for accusing her of things she hadn't done. She played innocent, pretending to be the victim. I couldn't take it anymore. I looked her in the eyes and calmly told her that I'd had enough, that I knew she'd been lying, cheating, and manipulating from the start. I told her I'd seen the messages, the secret meetings, her plans to walk out on the life we'd been building. Her face twisted into a sneer and she spat out, "You're just jealous. You're insecure. You think I'd cheat on you because I don't love you." That's when I lost my temper a little. I said, "No, Emily, you're just a bitch who thought she could get away with everything because she's pretty and manipulative. Well, I'm not fooling anymore." She started crying fake tears, I knew. She begged me, said she loved me, that she'd never do anything to hurt me, but I'd heard enough. I told her I was done, that I wanted her out of my life, that I'd had enough of her lies. She tried to guilt-trip me, saying I was ruining her life, that she'd never cheat or do something so disgusting. But I wasn't buying it anymore. The woman I loved was gone, replaced by this manipulative, lying bitch standing in front of me. I packed her bags that night and told her to leave. She yelled, called me all sorts of names, crazy, possessive, jealous, and kept insisting she was innocent. But I'd seen the truth and I wasn't going to pretend anymore. Watching her walk out that door, I felt a strange mix of relief and heartbreak. It was like losing a part of myself, but I knew I was finally free from her web of lies. The next few days were brutal. I felt hollow, like I'd been punched in the chest repeatedly. I kept thinking about everything I'd lost, the future we'd planned, the trust I'd given her, the love I thought was real. I kept questioning myself. Did I push her away? Was I blind? Or was she just a bitch who used me? Honestly, I still don't have all the answers. What I do know is that I learned a lot from this nightmare. The betrayal hit me hard, but it also opened my eyes. I realized how much I had tolerated, how much I'd ignored. I should have seen the signs, but I was too caught up in the idea of us to notice her true colors. Now I'm trying to move on slowly, painfully, but I will. Because I refuse to let a manipulative, cheating bitch like Emily ruin me completely. From this, I learned that sometimes you have to hit rock bottom before you can start climbing again. And if there's one thing I want to tell anyone reading this, it's this: trust your gut. If something feels off, it probably is. Don't ignore the signs. Because eventually, the truth will come out. And when it does, it's better to face it head on than to keep pretending everything. Okay, it's been a few weeks since she left, and honestly, it's been a roller coaster of emotions. Some days I feel like I'm gonna break apart. Other days I start to see a little light at the end of the tunnel. The worst part is that I keep replaying everything in my head, every moment, every sign I ignored, every lie she told. I keep asking myself how I didn't see what was happening, how I let her manipulate me. But deep down, I know I did everything I could. The problem was her, not me. Since she's gone, I've had to rebuild some parts of my life from scratch. I've thrown out all the stuff she left behind, her clothes, her makeup, the little reminders of a life I thought was ours. It's like shedding skin. I realized I was holding onto a lot of hope, and that hope was just making it harder to move forward. I've started focusing on myself, going to the gym, reconnecting with friends I'd neglected, and trying to find some kind of peace amid the chaos. The thing is, revenge gave me a strange sense of closure, but it also left me with this hollow feeling I can't quite shake. Seeing her unravel, watching her panic and lie and beg, that was satisfying in a way. But it also made me question what kind of person I am, fighting fire with fire. Was I just playing her game, or was I just standing up for myself? I think it's a mix of both. I needed her to see that I wasn't some pushover, that I could fight back when pushed too far. In the end, I decided not to pursue any legal action or try to ruin her life, at least not for now. I just want to move past her, forget her lies, and rebuild my own. I know I'll be okay, even if it takes some time. I broke up with her and I've started the long process of healing, even if it hurts like hell. The trust is gone, yeah, but I'm learning how to trust myself again. That's what matters. Looking back, I realized that I learned something really important. Don't ignore the little signs. I was blind because I loved her, because I wanted things to work. But love isn't enough if the other person is just using you. I've come to understand that I deserve honesty, loyalty, and respect, things Emily never really gave me. And I hope anyone reading this takes that away, too. Don't settle for someone who lies and cheats. If you see the signs, walk away. It's better to be alone than to be cheated on and betrayed. Now I'm focusing on building a new life. It's not easy and I still get angry sometimes, but I know I'll get through it. One day, I'll look back at this whole nightmare and realize I'm stronger for having survived it. That's what I want everyone to remember. Sometimes, the worst pain teaches us the most valuable lessons. And if you're going through something similar, just know, you're not alone and you'll come out on the other side stronger than ever. It's been a while since I finally cut ties with Emily, and honestly, the silence these days feels almost deafening. I won't lie. There are still nights when I lie awake wondering what I missed, what I could have done differently. But I also realize that some things just aren't meant to be. Not everyone is honest, loyal, or worth fighting for. And I learned that the hard way. You probably think I'd be bitter or broken after all this. Maybe I am a little, but mostly I'm angry. Angry at her for what she did, angry at myself for trusting her, and angry at the fact that she thought she could cheat and lie her way through our life like it was nothing. That anger fuels me to move on, to build something better, something stronger. I refuse to let her betrayal define me. Looking back, I see how much I've grown. I used to think love meant sacrificing everything, but now I see it's about respect and honesty. If someone can't give you that, then they're not worth your time. I was blinded by my feelings and she took advantage of that. But I won't let her win. I've learned to trust my gut, to see the warning signs early, and most importantly, to walk away when things aren't right. I want to tell anyone who might be reading this, who might be going through something similar, that it's okay to feel hurt, to feel betrayed. But never let that betrayal define you. You're stronger than the pain, and someday you'll look back and realize that what doesn't kill you makes you better. Trust is fragile, but it can be rebuilt, and so can your life after a betrayal. There's a certain freedom that comes with letting go. I don't have that weight on my shoulders anymore. My heart is battered, sure, but it's healing. I'm focusing on myself now, my goals, my happiness, and I'm taking it day by day. The past is the past. Emily is out of my life, and honestly, that's the best thing that's happened to me in a long time. So to everyone out there who's been betrayed, who's feeling broken, the pain won't last forever. You'll find your footing again. You'll learn to trust, to love, and to live on your terms. Because at the end of the day, what matters most is how you pick yourself up from the worst of times. And I can promise, the best is yet to come.